friends and neighbours, look at me making another video already. What is this, new year, new me? Doubtful, these things never last. But something has caught my eye recently and I just needed to talk about it with someone. And you are that someone. Hi Mum, hi Dad. And I hope that they are as excited as I am to hear that there is finally going to be another installment in the 28 Days Later franchise. Yay! Yes, nearly 2 decades after the original, we're getting another sequel to 28 Days Later. Yet there was a sequel, the 28 Weeks Later, but the less said about that one, the better.
Itchy nose.
I am pretty excited because 28 Days Later is one of my favourite films, but that's also the reason why I'm a little bit concerned. It's always hard to follow a highly successful, hugely loved project like that. But we now have Danny Boyle and Alex Garland back together again.
Squish.
Back in charge, writing and directing as they should be. And there is even some small hope that Cillian Murphy might be making a return. Nothing is set in stone or even slightly wet cement at the moment. There's no cast list or even hinted at cast list, but Cillian has said he is interested. So there's hope. For those of you who missed it because you weren't really into zombie movies or you were too young when the original came out in 2002, 28 Days Later is the movie that reinvented and revamped the love for zombie movies. No longer were they shambling hordes of easily outrunnable rogues. These zombies had been on the go-go juice. As have I right now. Cider. I will go on record as saying that I'm not overly fond of running zombies. Part of their charm is the slow, shuffling amble followed by the cat-like lunge as they sense your tasty brain juices nearby. But 28 Days Later gets a pass. Not only because it's an amazing movie and any time the infected are on screen it's a tense and terrifying race for survival, but also because they're not technically zombies. These are not the undead. They are not resurrected zombies. They don't chomp on brains. These are infected humans.
The chimps are infected!
Infected with what?
Rage.
This film is high adrenaline. It's swift, it's brutal, it's devastating. But it also has enough light moments and moments of levity that means it's not just a brutal slog with no character or heart. It's lovable violence, in a way. The film follows a bicycle courier named Jim who gets into an accident and wakes up, you guessed it, 28 days later to find that the world has gone to pot. London is now a derelict wreck and he appears to be the only person left alive.
Hello!
This leads to some amazing and iconic scenes of a destroyed and derelict London. Seeing London this empty is incredibly eerie. But it's also kind of funny when you realise that just out of shot there's a horde of people just waiting to get on their way to work because they only had permission to close the streets for a very short time. 'Cause busy Londoners gotta London. Jim eventually meets up with survivors Selina and the instantly lovable Frank, and Frank's daughter Hannah. Frank and Hannah have a pretty decent setup in their high-rise flat, fortified against the hordes. But that can't last forever, and Frank has picked up a radio signal from a military blockade offering protection. Which means only one thing: road trip! And bad things happen. If that's a little vague for you, that's because I don't want to spoil it, because I highly recommend that you go and see this film if you haven't already, or rewatch it if you already have. I'm not going to bother going over any plot for 28 Weeks Later because I don't remember it, and to be honest I don't recommend it. It's just not as good. Neither Boyle or Garland were involved in the creation of it, only being on board in the role of executive producers, and Garland has even openly stated that he's not very fond of it. The only good thing about it was Robert Carlyle, because Robert Carlyle is always good. According to IMDb, the project was greenlit on the 11th of January this year, so that means that at least one movie is barreling its way towards us. The plan is to make a trilogy, because of course it is, with Boyle on board to direct the first film and Garland writing all three. But whether that will go ahead as planned remains to be seen. There is the little question of why it's 28 years and not 28 months. That would seem the logical progression, days, weeks and months. Well, quite simply because it has been a very long time since the first film. There was talk of a 28 months back in 2005, I think, but it's now been 22 years since the original, and it just seems more appropriate this way. Especially if they do bring back Cillian Murphy, which I hope they do because he's brilliant. And though he does have a very youthful look to him, it's still clear that he's a little more than a few months older. There were also the issues of 28 Weeks pooping the bed a little bit and everybody losing enthusiasm for the project, and some talk of complications with ownership. But that is all sorted now, and we are back on track for the long-awaited return to the franchise. Fingers crossed it doesn't soil our memory of the original. Bye.
Strange fish.
I have two sets of headphones in the background. You'd think I had more than one set of ears.